All right, happy Friday, Ed. How you doing, man?
Hey, good day, Robbie. I'm doing super. Thanks for asking. So yeah, my weekend is coming up on me. You're already in your weekend, so
I'm already in my weekend here in the future. 5:30 in the morning Sydney time, 2:30 p.m. Minnesota time. Welcome to the Unspoken Truth, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host Robert Russ, and I'm joined by my good mate Ed Anderson over there in Minnesota. If this is your first time here, welcome. We like to talk about the stories in mainstream media, pull back the curtain and give you the unspoken truth of what's really going on, and have we got some doozies for you today. I'm really excited to be sharing that, and we're going to have some fun on a Friday morning, and we're going to bring it to you, the audience, and we're going to have a bit of a laugh. You're going to laugh your ass off for a variety of different reasons, mostly because you just can't believe what's actually going on in the world. And it's almost not funny, but you've got to remember to have a laugh at these things. I think that's a really important thing. What do you say, Ed?
Oh, amen, brother. Yeah, you got to laugh at some of this stuff. Otherwise, your head will explode.
I think Zelensky's head might have been exploding yesterday with Rishi Sunak. I don't know. I think Zelensky might be a cocaine addict. I want to put it out there, the unspoken truth. You see him like with his nose all the time and his eyes, and he's like always like this. And he's at like the table with Rishi Sunak, like all sorts of shit going on. I also think I want to put some unspoken truth out there at the top of the show and have a bit of fun with it. Zelensky's only a little fella, right? Looks like he's 5'3", 5'4", or something like that. And he's surrounded by these giant security guards, these big 6'5" dudes, you know? And sometimes I look at that and I think, are they his security detail or are they his minders? If you're picking up what I'm putting down, because sometimes it doesn't look like they're his security detail. Sometimes it looks like they're there to make sure that he doesn't go running away anywhere that he shouldn't be running away. Anyway, that's just an observation, man.
So they're not looking at the crowd to look for threats. They're looking at him.
Well, you know, the Secret Service, when you see them, they're the most squared away dudes on planet Earth, right? They know exactly what they're doing. And these guys kind of look inwards at Zelensky, like looking at him like, you're not going anywhere, pal. Yeah, you go and get those weapons and you get that jumper off and get a new one on. You got a red carpet to walk down with somebody in the Maldives, and you've got to get a sunburn for everybody like that and put yourself out there. He's pretty crazy, man, what's going on over in that part of the world, that's for sure.
Yeah, you know, the Secret Service these days, they're more of elderly care service now. They're just they're there to help people get off the ground, you know.
Oh, man. I was tempted to bring all the memes into the show today about Joe Biden tripping over and whatnot, but it's funny as hell. But I've resisted the urge, and we're going to move on from that topic because it's not really that funny that somebody's fallen over. We shouldn't make fun of it. But you know, I kind of can't help it, man, because I'm not making fun of him falling over. I'm just making fun of the fact that it's such a shit fight. And it's just a mess. It's just a mess.
Yeah, enough said. I agree.
Enough said. All right, folks. Today on the show, we're going to talk about, you might not have heard of this thing. Ed coined it yesterday. It's called the debt jubilee. It's like a celebration where all debts are going to be forgiven. Really? I don't have any more debts? Really? Yeah, you do. But at what cost? Well, I'll tell you, folks, Ed's going to show us what the cost is, and we're going to talk a little bit about that and have some fun with that as well. So imagine a world where you had no debt. Imagine a world where you didn't own anything and you only ever rented stuff. I don't buy those old school DVDs to sit on my shelf anymore. I rent them from Netflix and streaming television type scenario. I don't own the car, I lease the car. I don't own the house, I rent the house. But I don't have any debts, and I'll be happy. And in some ways, I don't know, I'm happy about those things. I like those things in life. Those things are convenient. But at what cost? So far, there's no real cost. But in the future, as we move forward, there will be a cost. We're going to shift gears towards the end of the show and have a bit of a laugh and talk about some broken Western culture. There's a lot of things coming out about the Hunter Biden laptop in the last couple of days. All the photos from his laptop, more than 10,000 photos have been released onto a website. And it's a pretty shit website. It's clunky. I wouldn't spend a second looking at it. I looked at it for about half an hour yesterday on behalf of the Unspoken Truth audience, and there's just no point in looking at it. Let the media do their thing, let the journalists do their thing, and they'll pull out all of that content for us. It's just really clunky. You can't look at it on a desktop screen. The map is about like 2 inches high, and you can't scroll around or see anything. It's made for a mobile phone. Anyway, you can't do anything with a mobile phone when you're trying to research something or save photos or do something like that. It's just super clunky, so don't bother. But I've got a report that will show you something that you just won't believe. In fact, I've got 2 reports that go for a couple of minutes each, and I'll show you that, and we'll have a little bit of fun with that. And it'll just show you how busted our economy is and how busted our society is. And there's a lot of scary stuff happening. And man, oh man, it's been a crazy weekend. It's been crazy, man.
It's bizarre world.
Upside down world.
Yep. Sounds something the name of a new theme park. Yeah. Welcome to Bizarre World, and you're all there.
There it is. Well, ladies and gentlemen, as we said, if this is your first time here, make sure you like and subscribe here on the channel on YouTube. If you're watching this on Facebook, say g'day to us. Let us know where you're dialing in from. And if you've got any questions, please contribute to the show, and we'll endeavor to answer those as we go. Don't forget, we're also available as a podcast over on Spotify and Apple, and where all good podcasts can be found. I'm nudging up against 200 shows with that podcast. I should cross that Rubicon in the next couple of days. And Susie said to me yesterday, she goes, oh, we should celebrate. We'll cross the Rubicon of 200 videos this weekend as well. And I was like, really? Why? What are we celebrating? All I'm doing is making videos and creating content. And I thought to myself, when we get to 500, that's when we can maybe have a little glass of champagne or have a little celebration. What do you think?
Susie just wants you to take her out for a hamburger. She's looking for an excuse.
I think that might have been the actual reason, right? I think you're bang on. I was misreading the room completely. Well, folks, don't forget to come on over and follow us on Telegram as well. We're starting to get a few followers trickle in there. Just scroll down below and the link to Telegram is right there. The reason I want you to come over there is because I can share a whole lot of content that I can't share on this self-censoring commissar platform that YouTube is. Unfortunately, I'm not allowed to show you a whole range of things that are over there on the Telegram channel. Just be warned, folks, it comes with a warning. There's a lot of R-rated content on there, and there's some things there that if you click on them and you see them, you won't be able to unsee them. So if you've got a weak stomach or you're a bit sensitive to war and combat and those types of things, just comes with a warning. Just be careful. But I put those things in there and show you those things to give you the unspoken truth and show you what's going on the front lines. Because if you see what's going on the front lines in the war in Europe, I promise you will lose support for it really quickly. And I promise you will see that war is a complete and total absolute failure of humanity. The destruction and death is at a scale that we've not seen since World War I. In fact, I was thinking the other day that this is worse than World War I. It's in a different way. And it's just purely because modern weaponry is just more destructive than what it was back in the day. But human lives were just wasted, absolutely wasted on an hourly basis during World War I. But the same thing's happening right now. It's no different.
Well, it's a huge success for the people at BlackRock.
Also for the Belt and Road guys.
Belt and Road, JP Morgan.
Pretty happy.
There's a lot of money. There's a lot of people benefiting from this war. I mean,
there's a lot of upside.
We could spend the whole week. Rob and I off camera, we talk about starting our own arms, black market business.
There's something to it, right?
Yeah.
Folks, I want to just extend a further word of caution as well, just in relation to the war. There's a whole lot of footage coming out and reports, and Ed and I were talking about this a little bit yesterday, where people are saying, oh, there's weapons that are destined for Ukraine that are ending up in the hands of cartels. And there was a couple of reports yesterday saying there's Javelin missiles that now the cartel has. And I'm like, no, they don't. And they show a picture of a cartel guy, if that's even what it is. And he's got his back to you, and he's got his AK slung over his back, and he's also got an AT-4 slung over his right shoulder as he's walking away. And when you look at the canister that the rocket is inside, you'd be forgiven for thinking, if you didn't know what you were looking at, that might be a Javelin missile. But when I look at it clearly, because I know this equipment and this hardware, I can see straight away it's not a Javelin, it's an AT-4. But there's a bunch of news media out there saying Javelin missiles are now in the hands of cartel. No, they're not. That's the first thing. The second thing is, even if that guy has got hold of that AT-4, and it is and it is like a real AT-4, when you look closely at it, it's got just one yellow line around it. And one yellow line around the AT-4 means it's inert. It's a training aid. A real live AT-4 has got a yellow line around it with two black lines on either side of the yellow line. That says that's a live rocket that you've got right there. And on top of all of that, AT-4 is a shit weapon. It's close range. What are you going to do? You're going to take out a car with something like that, maybe blow up the one room of a building or something like that. The effect on a battlefield that something like that would have is like next to nothing. But all of this other media out there would have you think that there's massive corruption happening in Ukraine and the weapons are making their ways into the cartel's hands. It's just not true. And even if it was true to a point, even if the guy was walking around with the javelin and the clue to actually fire it, and even if that was true, there's no way to verify that that weapon system was actually destined for Ukraine, unless you could see the serial number on that weapon and on the clue that attaches to the javelin itself. There's no way that you could verify if that was real or not. So just be careful, folks, when people are saying, oh, there's corruption and weapons are going to all parts of Europe and, you know, the black market is awash full of different weapon systems and how, no one knows that. The only people that would know that are the people that are actually sending the weapons, meaning they're the ones. So there's some bean counter somewhere in a warehouse looking, you know, and there's a whole crate of M4s going across there, and then there's 4,000 magazines that go with it, and there's 1 million rounds of ammunition that go with it in that one shipment on that one plane. And if that didn't arrive at the other end, you know, it's not accounted for. But we know that the Americans have got and it's led by a 3-star general. In Germany, there's somebody there, and there's a team of 30 or 40 people accounting for all the weapon systems that are arriving. The American government has come out and said that. But what happens when it goes across the border? Who knows? No one knows. That's where the loss of the tracking goes as well. But equally, we also found out a couple of months ago, and henny penny the sky was falling when we found this out, that there was Americans on the ground in Ukraine. And the reason they were on the ground in Ukraine is making sure that pallet full of M4s, the magazines and the ammunition was going to where it was supposed to go to. And they were the endpoints of it. And it was coming to the armories and being delivered there. And the Americans were on the ground making sure that that was audited correctly. At least that's what they came out and told us. I don't know. I can't verify it.
I hope that check that you got from Zelensky clears.
No, it was from Blinken, man.
Okay. Oh, there you go. Well, then it definitely won't clear.
I'm parroting the deep state media, right?
I feel so much better about Ukraine now, Rob. I changed my mind. I think these guys are much more trustworthy than I give them credit for. So, thank you for setting me straight.
Come on, man. Who knows where the serial numbers are on that? Even the serial number on the training aid for the AT4, that's got a serial number on it. Somebody's responsible for that. Somebody knows where that came from. And however that got in country and however that got there, there's a whole range of issues related to that, right? It doesn't belong there. The cartel guy doesn't, that AT4, but that could also come from the Colombian military who use AT4s. Who knows?
The Pentagon is famous for not being able to keep track of toilet paper from the closet to the toilet room. I mean, they can't keep. I don't trust them at all with those kind of numbers.
You might not know this because you're not in the military, but you're a very close follower of news and politics and geopolitics and stuff. You might have heard this before, but you would have heard this before. The American military hasn't lost a friendly soldier, allied or otherwise, on the ground to enemy air cover or enemy fire from the air since 1953. Yeah, so America and Western allies have held air superiority across planet Earth on any conflict that we've been involved in since the 1950s. And you'd probably know that, and you hear that statistic and you go, oh yeah, that kind of makes sense. There's also another statistic that they used to be really super, super proud of, but that can no longer be said. And it was that American weapon systems, previously, if you cast back to maybe pre-2005, before the surge in Iraq, before the rise of ISIS and the craziness that was happening there. So when we were in Iraq and we were fighting tooth and nail, and we were actually losing, we were losing badly, right? It was said that no American or Western weapon systems were falling into the hands of the enemy, and no American or Western soldier was killed by one of our own weapon systems. And I can remember thinking, well, that's like a pretty amazing statistic that actually happens. And when you look at the battlefield in Ukraine, you see dead Russian soldiers all the time, right? And they've got their AK-12s are there, they've got their pistols, they've got there's a position that's been destroyed by an artillery strike and there's 20 dead people there, a whole platoon's been wiped out and all of their equipment is there. So that really hasn't happened to us at scale in Western militaries in the last couple of years. So we haven't had our weapon systems fall into the enemy hands. And I remember when they first went up against ISIS and that sort of became a thing, I remember seeing footage of transport aircraft flying over northwestern Iraq and dropping cargo out the back of these planes. And what they're trying to do is to resupply the Kurds, but they're making mistakes as they're resupplying them. And the ISIS fighters with their GoPros on their heads running over, going, opening the boxes, going, woohoo, look at these hand grenades, woohoo, look at these weapons. And then I remember seeing that thinking, was that like an accident? I've been in parachute ops like for a few years. I know how this goes. I know how this works. Mistakes happen for sure. But the chances of that mistake happening are like so small, man. They are so unbelievably small. There's no way that the pilot is going to fly to the wrong waypoint, open the door, and kick out the shit out of the back of the Hercules like that. There's no way that could happen. And then these ISIS fighters are celebrating, they're loading their M4s with their magazines and racking them and going and do it. I'm thinking, that's all a ruse, man.
It's a lot easier for them to just wait for us to leave a major military base, and then they can just walk in and get everything for free.
Well, that's the culmination of everything I'm talking about, isn't it? That's pretty crazy. Just be careful what you're looking at in the media, folks. You got to pull back the curtain and say to yourself, who stands to gain the most from these things, and who's gaining the most from these things. And more importantly, ask yourself the question, why on earth do they want me to know this? Why is this being put forth into the narrative? Does it make any sense to be doing that? Shouldn't that be operational security? If I was on the planning side of that and I was in the military and doing those things, I would have my mouth shut and I would be completely silent about all of these things. And in some ways, that's what the Russians are doing. There's not a lot of chatter about Russians on the battlefield. You see a little bit here and there. You see some propaganda for sure, but you don't see the type of chatter in Telegram that you do from the Ukrainians, that you do from the Russians. They're not allowed to do that because they've got these rules. If you go posting videos and content of what's going on here, we'll either take you out the back and shoot you, or you'll be off to the gulag. There's some pretty serious rules around that. And even the Ukrainians have got some pretty serious rules around the media as well, but they allow the content to go out. You keep seeing the content, and the content that you're seeing, that's what they want you to see.
Well, Ukrainians have their Dia app now that they can just pull out of their pocket.
They'll just report me, man, for telling people that it's not real, that it's propaganda.
Yeah.
All right, let's shift gears. Let's take it away from me, Ed. I'm excited for the debt jubilee, man. I want to get rid of all of my. I don't have very much debt, but I want to get rid of my debt, and I want to be forgiven for my sins mostly.
Yeah, well, I can't help you with the sins, but talk to Susie about that. But now, I wish I had coined the phrase debt jubilee. It is not used very often, but it's not a new term, and actually, it's been around for 3,000 or 4,000 years. Now, so my presentation is 8 minutes long, but I'm going to pause it about halfway through for discussion. So please hang around. All right, so let's get to it. Jubilee be right around the corner? So could a debt jubilee be right around the corner? And if so, what could that mean for our money and for the financial system in general? Well, let's talk about it. Okay, so I've talked about debt YouTube channel, but I thought I would mention it again because we might have one coming up here, and I want to remind you of what this is all about. Now, I saw an article in Zero Hedge talking about an upcoming potential debt jubilee, and I thought, well, okay, good for them. Well, this is a good reminder to talk about it again. So this is an article out of Zero Hedge. A debt jubilee of biblical proportions is coming soon. Okay, so the idea of a debt jubilee is not a new phenomenon in the financial world. It's actually been around for about 3,000 or 4,000 years. And it sounds wonderful, right? What a name to put to it. What a spin. A jubilee, a party, a debt party. So imagine that you're a ruler of a kingdom in some ancient civilization, okay? So every once in a while, the populace would find themselves burdened with debt, and therefore they become very unhappy with their lives. And when you have an unhappy populace, that's when revolutions are possible. That's when people start, complaining and saying, hey, you know what, this is not good. And the rulers don't like the idea of people being unhappy enough that they can start a revolution. And after a while, rulers started to see a connection between overburdensome debt and an unhappy populace. And so what they decided to do is they came up with a pressure relief valve where they would, from time to time, announce a debt jubilee. Basically, all debts are forgiven by decree. I'm the king, and I'm saying all debts are forgiven. And then that ruler becomes really popular again. And then he can go back to spending his days in a sauna with beautiful girls feeding him grapes or whatever, rulers did back then. But hold on a minute. When you take out debt, you're entering into an agreement, right? Debts are agreements between two willing parties. So, Bob wants to buy a plot of land so he can grow his wheat. So he goes to George, who has a lot of money, says, listen, I need 1,000 shekels to buy this piece of land. And George says, okay, I'll tell you what, I'll give you the 1,000 shekels, but I'm going to charge you interest on that money. And Bob says, okay, I can live with that. So Bob borrows 1,000 shekels from George, goes out and buys the land and starts growing his wheat. And he's paying George his monthly payments, with interest. But then he has a couple of years of bad crops. And it's becoming harder and harder to make the payments to George on the loan. So Bob has to get a side gig selling fish. And so life is not very joyful all of a sudden, for poor Bob. And the king notices that there are a lot of Bobs out there with outstanding loans to a lot of Georges. And he doesn't want these guys to be too angry for too long. So the king announces one weekend, all right, party time, all debts are forgiven by decree. And now he's a really popular king. Okay, so all the Georges out there, they're saying, hey, what the hell? I gave this guy 1,000 shekels out of my own pocket. So he goes to Bob and he says, hey, Bob, I need you to keep up with your payments. Bob says, hey, according to the king, I don't have to. So take a long walk. So George is out 1,000 shekels and Bob has this beautiful piece of land. These are wealth transfer events. And these are tricks used by the ruling class in order to pacify the general public. Now, not only are these wealth transfer events, but they are inflationary events.
All right, we have to unmute there. There we go. There you go. You unmuted. I got you.
Okay, so there's more to debt forgiveness than just relieving somebody of the burden. There's more to. There's always another side to the equation that people don't talk about.
If I've learned anything in life, man, everything's about polarity, right? And you'll be shown the things that are actually the best for you and that are good for you, because polarity always has the negative implication. What is the negative implication? You talked a little bit about inflation there. Tell us some more about that.
Oh, spoiler alert, that's coming up in the next half of the
bit.
Okay. Yes. But I wanted to kind of mull over this point about how this has been used for millennia. This little trick by the ruling class in order to stay in power.
Well, we were talking about that with the Japanese in the 1990s, but they're like, don't worry about it, man. Just calm down, man. Calm down, bro. We'll just write it off. And everyone's like, you can't write it off. You can't do that. We signed a contract. We've got obligation. We can do that. And they're like, shut up, man. We're the government. We can do whatever we want.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, listen, we on a regular basis, we write off debts that we gave to foreign countries, right? Hundreds of millions of dollars. And then the country gets into a really bad economic condition. And we forgave $500 million to Ecuador. All right. And it's like on page 4 of the newspaper with one line. And, that happened on a regular basis.
And the creature from Jekyll Island in that book, he talks about that quite a bit, actually. And he talks about how countries get to a point where, so G. Edward Griffin, folks, if you haven't read the book, The Creature from Jekyll Island, it's the second most important book of the 20th century because it shows you how our economic system really works and how the Reserve Bank, how the Fed actually promotes war and how they promote what it is that you're describing. The economic collapses and we can't manage the debt, we can't do that, don't worry, we'll just print money and give it to you. There you go. And they give it to them under certain conditions to get certain things. Well, I saw a pretty heavy-handed negotiation, a pretty blunt force trauma negotiation around the same thing just the other day, where they were pressuring. Turkey was saying, no, Sweden can't enter NATO. And they said, well, we've been asking for F-35s for a little while. And they said, you're not having F-35s because you bought S-400 missile systems from Russia. So you're not having F-35s. That's off the table completely. And then Erdogan said, all right, well, we want more F-16s. And this is how they pressure each other. This is how they leverage each other. You want me to let them in NATO? You need to give me more fighter jets. You want me to actually supply this to you? You need to fix my debt here. And one of the things with the Federal Reserve is they use debt as an instrument of compliance. So there's a very big difference between, and here I'll wade into some controversial, I know it's controversial for you, Ed, and you get a little bit riled up when I say it, but I kind of like the idea of the way the CCP do business. Because the CCP don't go in there offering money. What they go in and they do is they offer and they say, what do you guys need? You need an airport, you need roads, you need bridges, you need ports, you need that stuff. We'll build it for you. And instead of giving them the money, they build the infrastructure, which is what these people want. And these poor African countries and these poor Asian countries that need help and these Southwest Pacific countries that need help, they don't want a handout. They don't want the debt. They don't want the burden of the debt. What they need is the infrastructure.
Exactly.
Because the people that are there are like, how are we going to build this road, man? The only way that we can build this road is if we take some foreign debt, which we're not going to be able to pay back, and that's going to get us into a situation. Or what about the Chinese who said that they'll build the road for us and they'll just do it with their labor? That's the price that we have to pay. And then they're going to bring in all their goods and services, and that will help our economy. A lot of what they do in that Belt and Road stuff is actually really good, man. When you look into it and when you pull back the curtain and look behind the propaganda of, it's the CCP, the way that they do business is actually kind of conducive to what those countries want.
Yeah, no, look, that's not controversial to me. No, I give credit to China in that regard. They're running circles around, our approach in the U.S. No, you're right. We make these countries indebted to us and make things more difficult for them. Whereas China, you need that highway that runs across. We'll build it for you. And
what do you think about that alignment argument to that very point, Ed? Do you think that if the Kevin Rudd, he's a dickhead, but he wrote a good book called The Avoidable War, and that's where I kind of learn a lot about that. It's 15 hours of him talking about how the CCP do business. And if you listen closely to what he's saying, it's like, well, what if we got alignment with what they were doing?
Yeah.
If we got alignment with the Chinese, and instead of actually trying to oppose them, we ponied up with them to help those countries. Like the Chinese go there to build roads. What do you need to build roads? Well, you need goods, you need services, you need people, you need resources to do that. What if we pony up with them to give them the resources that they need to do that? And that helps with our economic prosperity. Or instead of having an adversarial relationship where we're continuously butting heads, if we went in the same direction as what they were doing and tried to get alignment with them, then and helping them to help those other countries to do that, taking a different approach. The problem is, I'm living in a fucking fantasy world, man.
Listen,
but that's a solution.
Yeah, no, listen. This is a complicated topic. So you do have to step back and make generalizations. That's the only way to talk about this subject in a cohesive way. In a 1 hour podcast. You have to generalization. But generally speaking, China is taking over the world with a silk glove rather than a steel gauntlet. They're doing the soft approach, and the Belt and Road Initiative. Look, right now it's stretching. Now they're working their way up through the Arctic Circle, so they're going to have control of every important port, railway, seaway throughout the world for the supply chain issue. They're going to control it, so they can control people's economies. That's why a lot of times you'll see EU countries standing up and defending China over some policy that America is criticizing for. But some random guy at the EU will stand up. No, they're not so bad. And it turns out, they just built a railroad for that guy's, district. Back in, so yeah, they're clever people. Look, all these people are clever people, right? With the notable exception of our State Department. But the rest of the world, our State Department, these are just cronies. Yep. We have a crony government that doesn't look out for the people. They look out for their own special interests. But boy, we're starting to go down a rabbit hole. Let me finish this segment here. So
before you press the button now, I just want to highlight one point, because you're talking about a debt jubilee, and what you're really talking about is the emperor or the king coming out saying all debts are forgiven. And the Chinese government have done that several times. And in the modern world, Western governments and the opposition to the Chinese would call that debt trap diplomacy. But don't be fooled, folks. The unspoken truth is it's only happened a handful of times, and the Chinese don't want to use debt trap diplomacy. What they want to do is they want to create opportunities to do more business in more locations. Their economy is completely wrecked internally, so they have to look externally to solve those problems. And they're not looking to debt trap people or countries with their policies. They're looking to solve their internal financial problems by building more infrastructure and creating more opportunity. But to the debt jubilee scenario, that's happened several times with the Chinese, where these countries, Sri Lanka is an example, right? The port in Sri Lanka, it's the one that I can think of right now, is that, oh my God, we can't afford the payments here. You built this expensive wharf that we don't need. And they're like, well, don't worry about the payments. Don't worry about it. We're just going to own the lease on it for 100 years, yeah? And if we want, we can bring our Navy here, yeah? Because it's a very strategic place, and these Indians give us the shits and the Americans and everyone else here in the Indian Ocean, but we want to park our ships here. And the Sri Lankans are like, can we still use the port? Yeah, you can still use the port. We're going to operate it, so you're going to have to pay us to do that. We're going to bring our Navy here every now and then as well, but you can still use it, but you don't have to pay for it anymore, yeah? That's pretty good. And when you look at it like that, if you were a Sri Lankan politician, what would you do? There's no way to pay for it, man. We have to do it.
These countries themselves that America criticizes China for having influence, those countries themselves, they're not complaining.
Yes, exactly. They're happy. They're happy that they don't have to pay the debt. It was a jubilee. It was a party.
That's right. The jubilee. Yeah. We're complaining on their behalf. How dare they? Okay. All right. So let me go back to the segment here. So right now you're saying, yeah, but Ed, this is the modern world. There's no way debt would be forgiven now. Well, a newsflash. It's already happened. Remember after that worldwide flu that we had and the government put out these PPP loans, they flooded small businesses with these PPP loans that were immediately forgiven a year later. So the government gave small businesses debt and then they forgave them. Debt jubilee. And that money went onto our balance sheet and therefore inflation. So again, why are our people in power surprised when we get inflation? And more recently, we've had the president of our country, with a stroke of a pen, by executive order, by decree, forgiving a massive amount of student loan debt to the tune of $590 billion. Now, of course, he looks like a hero to his base, but hold on a minute. What about all those people who were responsible about paying off their student loan debt? They made their payments. And what about those people who didn't even go to college because they did not want to assume a lot of debt? So are all these people suckers? They're kind of feeling like it. Not only do they see other people getting bailed out, but now they're told that they have to pay the bill for those people who got bailed out. So to remind you of the current financial status of the populace in America, let's take a look at the current rate of debt. Okay, so look at this chart. Okay, so combined consumer debt between mortgage payments, revolving credit loan, over $16 trillion. So could we see car loan debt jubilees, credit card debt jubilees, mortgage debt jubilees? Well, the closer we get to election day, the bigger that possibility becomes. So how does the government pay for all of this debt? Well, are they going to put more debt onto our balance sheets? Are they going to issue more treasury bills? Listen, the government in the month of June, just in the month of June, is going to issue $1 trillion in new treasury bills. Half of that is going to go toward servicing debt on our existing debt. As interest rates go up, the cost of servicing our national debt also goes up. And it is quickly going to become the largest line item of expenses for the country. And if you look out 10 years, 20 years, it is just not sustainable. Every single penny collected in taxes will go toward servicing the existing debt. Not paying down the debt, just servicing the debt. This is not sustainable. So the only method that the government has to finance debt jubilees is to print more money. And of course, we all know what that does for inflation. Inflation is going to go through the roof. Look, listen, we are going to see Venezuela type inflation, maybe even Argentina type inflation. If they're going to do these debt jubilees, that is what has to happen. And then we've got the mother of all debt load, the national debt. Could they actually do a debt jubilee on $32 trillion? The coming federal debt jubilee. The U.S. government has the biggest debt in the history of the world, and it's continuing to grow at a rapid, unstoppable pace. In short, the U.S. government is fast approaching the financial endgame. The truth is, the debt will keep piling up unless Congress makes some politically impossible decisions to cut spending. Is there anyone in the audience who seriously think that's going to happen? They're going the opposite direction. They can't spend money fast enough. The amount of debt is so extreme that even return of interest rates to their historical average would mean paying interest expense on the debt would consume more than half of the current tax revenues. Raising interest rates high enough to dent inflation would bankrupt the U.S. government. In other words, it's game over. They have no choice but to reset the system. That's what governments do when they are trapped. And so there you have it. Okay, we have a financial reset coming. Now, what exactly that reset looks like, no one's quite sure, but I can guarantee you a few things. Inflation is going to get way out of control before this is over. The standard of living for Americans across the board are going to be dramatically affected unless you're prepared, right? There is a way to take advantage of it. The best thing you can do is start accumulating scarce assets that are unencumbered. Okay, they're debt-free, you own them. The most obvious one, gold and silver. So imagine if you started taking that fiat money that's in your bank that's losing you money, and instead of keeping it in a depreciating asset called the US dollar or whatever currency of the country you're in, and you put it into gold and silver and preserve that buying power. The worst place for your money these days is in a bank account. But if we ever have that massive federal debt jubilee, your dollars are going to be wallpaper. And less than 0.5% of the world population own any gold and silver. What the hell? And if you want to know the best way to acquire gold and silver, get in touch with me and I can hook you up with the program. So debt jubilees, they sound wonderful. They sound like a lot of fun. They sound really nice, but they are not good. And they could be the final straw of our current financial system. Remember, financial systems get reset all the time. You do not want to be caught precariously in that transition. Take advantage of it. Get some gold and silver. So reduce your exposure to your bank, put some of your money into gold and silver, and establish streams of passive recurring income.
Beautifully said, man. Beautifully articulated. It was,
Thank you, man.
Yeah, well done. You know, I couldn't help but think that it's such a complicated system that we live in, and you do a really good job of breaking down the complexities to see how that affects just a normal person like me. I was thinking of something in there that you kind of missed out a little bit, because it seems like you're talking fictitiously, but you say they get reset all the time. So I have two examples in modern history when it's reset, and in some cases in people's lifetimes. And it happened in 1933, when the American government said, no more gold, yeah? You got to hand in your gold, and we're going to give you X amount of dollars per ounce for the gold, and that's it. You're not allowed to have any more. So that was an example of resetting the system, and that's because the government didn't have enough gold in the coffers to back the dollars that were there. And they confiscated all of the gold that was in society. What was it at $35, $24, something like that?
Like 12, $15.
Yeah, something like that. But and immediately, once the thing had finished, an ounce of gold went from $12 or whatever it was to $18.
Yeah, it doubled overnight.
Yeah, and that's how they reset the economy, did it then. And then it happened again in 1971 with Richard Nixon. So it's happened twice in the 20th century that the dollar has been reset, because the dollar used to be backed by gold. And when the dollar was reset by Nixon, it was because there was not enough gold to back the amount of dollars there. And when he unpegged the dollar from the gold standard, when that happened, that just went, right, now we can just print as much money as we want. Yep. That was a party right there, baby. That was a jubilee. We ever saw one for the government.
Yep. You know, so I was born in 1960, right? And I did the research on it. So back then, the gold was the spot price for gold was $35 an ounce.
In 1971?
1960.
In 1960, yep.
So, and I looked for the average cost of a brand new car in 1960. And I think, well, what if my parents say, well, instead of buying the new car, we're going to take that gold. It would have been like 20 ounces of gold would have bought a new car.
Yeah, right.
What if instead of buying the new car, they took my parents didn't have any gold. Don't I'm just telling you a scenario. Okay. Let's say they took the 20 gold coins. Say, listen, rather than buying this car, let's put it in the shoebox and we'll give it to Ed, 30 years from now. And today, those same 21 ounce coins today would buy me 3 brand new luxury cars.
That really shows you how much inflation actually is, right?
Yep.
And you're not talking about just a runabout car for the family, for your mum and dad and the kids. You're talking about a luxury car like a Mercedes or a BMW or high-end European car or something.
Well, so in 1960, those 20 gold coins would have bought just a standard brand new car. But today, those same 20 coins would buy me 3 brand new luxury cars. And
it shows you how inflation is. Huh?
Over the same time period, the value of the U.S. dollar has just gotten crushed. Now, imagine if you were an Argentinian, Rob, and 5 years ago, you said, sweetheart, I think we should take all of our money out of the bank. Let's buy some gold with it. And let's just sit on it for 5 years. Okay. You could probably, with that gold, go out and buy the best house in Buenos Aires. Right now, right? Because of inflation. So the same kind of thing could happen here, people. So take that money that you have in the bank, that's one guarantee I can give you. Yeah,
that actually, what you're describing happened in the Weimar Republic after World War I. So the book that I talk about sometimes called The Death of Money talks about hyperinflation in the Weimar Republic in Germany, where they had to pay reparations to the French. And there was people that had just a small amount of gold. They had other things that other people wanted, like they had this really expensive piano. I remember there's a story about a piano in there, and they offload the piano and the amount of money he gets for the piano because the value of look, I'll buy it off you for a wheelbarrow of money. Takes a wheelbarrow of money. How much is that house? I'll buy that house, thank you. And that's how they're actually creating wealth in times of hyperinflation. It can be done. But the simplest way to do it is with the coins that you've got right there on your desk that you hold up all the time, right? That's the simplest way to do it.
Sure. Look, the idea being the best thing to do right now is to acquire scarce assets, things that are scarce. Not that everybody laying around. You want to find things that are scarce. Maybe it's a vintage car or something, but you want to find something that's scarce, and you want to own it, or you want it to be debt free. Okay, so if you and the easiest product is gold and silver. It's so the and of course the other thing, established genes of passive recurring income as a way to keep up with and stay ahead of inflation. So the things people can do are really quite simple that anyone can do. A lot of people right now are watching this and say, "Yeah, gold and silver is for the rich, Ed. I don't have that much money." No.
You don't need much. Yeah.
You don't need. Listen, at least with the program that I'm in, and there are other ways of doing it. You can buy fractional amounts of gold. If you have $100, whether it's sitting, you can put it in gold. It's simple transfer. So the only question is that $100 sitting in a shit asset that is guaranteed to lose your money, or put it in gold or silver.
There's not too many things guaranteed in life, man. No, death and taxes, right? They're the things. Death, taxes, and the diminishment and the wiping out of your bank account because of government mismanagement and inflation.
And that's another thing. Listen, inflation. You always hear the politicians say, we're not going to raise taxes on the lower and middle class. We're not going to do it. We're going to go after the rich guys. Well, inflation is a tax on everyone.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the most insidious form of tax because it affects the people on fixed incomes and poor people more than rich people, because rich people just like, well, whatever, man, I just pay more, I don't care. And I was in the supermarket with Susie. Today is Saturday, it was on Thursday. So 2 days ago, we were at the shops buying dinner, as you do. At the end of your work day, you go to the shops together and get some food. And she's like, let's get some vegetables. And I'm like, I'm not a rabbit, right? Let's eat meat. And she's walking up and down the veggie aisle, and I'm like, and I pointed and I said, don't buy that. And she said, what? I said, don't buy that. She said, what? What are you pointing at? And I wasn't pointing at the actual thing. I was pointing down. And she looked, and tomatoes were $10.99 a kilo. And I thought, I really like tomatoes a lot. I make a lot of tomato-based dishes, but I'm not buying tomatoes for $10 a kilo. Are you kidding me? And all of that's got to do with the price of transport, the fuel cost being really high, the cost of production for the farmers that create those tomatoes for me. Everything, inflation is going up and up and up and up and up. I remember a time when tomatoes were like $1.99 a kilo. I remember when they were 99 cents a kilo. I remember when petrol here in Australia was 49 cents a litre. And now I remember where my dad's parents used to live, where we'd go home, he would come out one way and drive down the hill, and there was a service station on one side, and you could see the other servo on the other side. And my old man would look, and he would pick the one that had the least. And I remember that's like 37, and this one's 35. So we'd drive down, turn around, and go to the one for 35 cents, 35 Australian cents a litre. And now it's like $2.30 a litre in my lifetime. And I must have been,
but you know,
maybe 10 years old.
Yeah, you know, it's much better gas now, though, Rob.
Oh my God, man. It's like unfreaking believable. I got to pick you up on one thing that you did incorrectly in that thing there, Ed. You said, if you're not careful, your dollars will be wallpaper. And I thought to myself, I wouldn't even stick that on the wall. The only thing it'd be good for is toilet paper.
It's pretty rough. I've tried it once. It's pretty rough, Rob. It doesn't work well.
I wipe my ass with $100 bills all the time. It's probably all right with American currency because it's paper. With Australian dollars, it's plastic and it doesn't flush down the toilet. It floats.
Ours isn't even paper. It's got a lot of cotton in it. It's actually everything but paper. It's got cotton. It's very, very sophisticated. You know, yeah. We got real fancy wallpaper with ours. But
I'll tell you about something that happens here sometimes in Australia that you've never experienced. I guarantee you've never experienced as an American from Minnesota. And here's a little bit of a cultural divide and a cultural difference. There's been many times that early in summer, when the weather starts to heat up, it's starting to get hot, a little bit like where you are now, right? It's starting to get warm and it's humid and everything. People go down the beach and they're swimming and stuff like that. Every now and then I've been down the beach and, you know, you dive in the water and it's my local, right? I live at the beach, literally, and swimming along. And I can remember a couple of times just going, bang, there's a $20 bill. Bang, there's a $10 bill. And I remember even my daughter swimming along going, oh, look, there's $50 because the money's plastic and it floats on the surface. And these people at the start of summer are going in the water and they forget that they've got $50 bills in their pockets. They go in the water and they come out of their pocket and float to the top for somebody else like that. So that definitely something that happens here in Australia. It's a bit of a weird thing, but here it is. All right, folks, before we...
Little shout out to Susan. Susan, I'll tell you, I'm going to give you my email. You can send me an email and I'll send you that information privately.
Yeah, Susan, if you want to come on over and join the Unspoken Truth community as well, we've got a little, we'll show you how to do the gold and silver thing in there as well. We've got a small little masterclass that goes in there, which reminds me, folks, that today's show is brought to you by you. In this crazy, uncertain world, we all need a way to protect and insulate ourselves from the outside forces that we simply cannot control. I'm a news junkie, and after a lifetime of constantly immersing myself in the darkness and the despair that engulfs the world, the path to shield myself and my family has become crystal clear. I want to invite you to come and join me in the Unspoken Truth community, where I'll show you how I protect my family from this crazy world. You'll get access to 3 masterclasses worth over $1,000, as well as our live events, training, and community of truthers just like you. Come on over to the unspokentruth.com.au and join us for just 50 cents a day. What are you waiting for? Get started now at the unspokentruth.com.au.
Yeah, baby.
Yeah, baby. We've got the little gold and silver masterclass on the inside of that community as well. I spent a lot of time distilling everything down. So the masterclasses that you get are my signature Go All In, Master Your Mind and Go All In masterclass. That's what I've been teaching in my coaching business for 4 or 5 years now. It's like the signature thing that I do, and it helps a lot of people. It's really, really good. So you get that for free. That's part of it. Then you also get how to monetize your knowledge, which is worth $899, plus the gold and silver masterclass. So there's sort of 3 really solid masterclasses in there. And in the weeks and months ahead, we're going to be doing lots of activity in there. There's a little community that's starting to build. There's not a lot of people there now, but as we grow, that will grow as well. And I'm excited to see where that takes us. The gold and silver stuff is really exciting for me because there's so many different ways to approach that and to do that. And you'll see very quickly that Ed's got the fastest and best way to actually get involved there, so he'll be able to help you. All right, let's shift gears into some fun stuff at the end of the week here. I want to have a good laugh here with you, Ed. I was thinking about what to title it here because I'm going to jump around a little bit, and I've got a series of videos I want to show you. We'll watch a video together, have a bit of a laugh, and then we'll comment on that. We'll just go to the next one. And the reason I was struggling with what to do here, I was like, what can I call this part of the segment? What am I going to do? And I thought to myself, all of this comes under the umbrella of culture. So when we're talking about culture, when we're talking about these things, it's the American and Western culture that we all live under. So even though this is American-centric, you will see that it will apply in your country. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with some Hunter Biden stuff, because that's top of mind and that's in the media. And I was like, there's just so much to go through with Hunter Biden and his stupid laptop. If you haven't read Miranda Devine's book, The Laptop from Hell, I encourage you to get yourself a copy of that book or the audio book. I've listened to that book a couple of times, and this is from several years ago, where everybody on the left was saying none of that's true, it's Russian disinformation, but we now know that it's all true. And Miranda Devine has been vindicated in that. And she's a regular commentator on Fox and a bunch of other places as well. So make sure you look her up, because she's the real deal and real old school investigative journalism, which is really good. I promise you, in the start of the Hunter Biden book, I'll say something a bit controversial. You can't help but like the guy. He's I think I've said that before, Ed, and you kind of like screw your face up and like, what are you talking about? He's the quintessential bad boy. He's just a shithead, but he's living this life. Yeah, exactly. He's living this life of sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And you're like, well, yeah, that's what I'd do too if I had all the money in the world and my dad was the vice president and I was doing all these things. I can
you wouldn't.
No. What I'm trying to say is you could see how he would end up there, but it also highlights how bad drugs are. And I wonder if you took the drugs aspect out of it, because he's a pretty bad drug addict. If you took that aspect out of it, none of all of this garbage would have happened. But I still think he would have taken advantage of a lot of it as well, because, he's a bit of a shithead like that. But I promise you, when you read the book, you can't help but like the guy just a little bit. I try to be objective about these things. I'm listening to the story and thinking, this is actually a pretty good story, right? So it's not my country. What do I care? I live in Australia. He's destroying your country.
You can have him. You can get him for cheap right these days.
He'd probably fit right in here. All right, I'm going to show you something really controversial here on the front end, and I want you to decide whether or not you think this is true. Remember, this show is about the unspoken truth, and we like to pull back the curtain behind things, so I'm going to go all the way there to begin with. So let's kick off with this one.
In all the tens of thousands of emails from Hunter Biden's disgusting laptop, it's been confirmed by independent cybersecurity experts that Joe Biden's son was actually financing biological laboratories in Ukraine.
True or false?
True.
Russian officials claimed the labs were producing biochemical weapons at the request of the Biden crime syndicate, and Moscow warned that Biden needs to explain his son's involvement with the labs.
We can confirm that the Kyiv regime is engaged in military biological programs financed by the United States of America.
Remember when this lady came out and the deep state just went, no, it's not true, it's not true, it's not true, it's not true, it's not true. CNN, CNBC, ABC, everyone, Fox, everyone said this woman was a liar. But actually, no.
It's impossible these programs were used to benefit science and peace because they were financed by the U.S. Department of Defense. The Pentagon and Joe Biden must officially explain to the global community about the programs in Ukraine.
And as it turns out, the Russians were right. Hunter's firm, Rosemont Seneca, actually did invest $500,000 in the San Francisco pathogen research company Metabiota.
Hey, let's just stop there. Who the fuck invests in a bio? all the shit that can go wrong, man. Like, of all the investments.
Yeah, he's got to. Hey, boy, we've got a pill that's going to cure the common cold. Hey, I'll go.
No, you
that.
don't.
There's a lot of well, rather than that, I found out that there's a biolab company that's going to make bioweapons,
which is located where? In the most corrupt country in the world. Like, ready? It gets better. Here we go.
Yeah, go ahead.
Working in Ukraine, on top of millions in additional funding Hunter secured through other firms like Goldman Sachs. Now, Metabiota is a subcontractor for the Department of Defense's engineering firm Black & Veatch. Remember that name.
Ed's had his Friday afternoon epiphany. There it is, baby.
You knew it was going somewhere. You knew it wasn't just his belief in it. No. You knew it was going somewhere.
So I've watched this video a couple of times, right? Because I had to pull it out, and and the look on this guy's face, it's like this reporter that's reading it, right? It's like he's been validated. It's like he's like, I always knew this guy was a shithead. I read that book and I knew he was a rat bag, and now here's the fucking proof. And you just watch like his body language and his inflection in his voice, how he's doing it. News anchors are normally pretty neutral when they're reading a story, but this guy is about as far from neutral as you could be.
This is where it gets really interesting, because according to official documents uncovered by investigators at the expose, government funding records show the Department of Defense awarded $370,000 to biolabs in Ukraine for COVID-19 research in November of 2019.
What?
For anyone keeping track, that's 3 months before the WHO officially even named the Chinese virus COVID-19. You can see it for
It wasn't a Chinese virus. Hint, hint. It's not the Wuhan virus. It just came from there, but it's not from China.
yourself. It's highlighted right there. November 12th, 2019. SME manuscript documentation and COVID-19 research. The U.S. and Hunter Biden.
All right, what happened? That's the end. That's the end of it there. see him at the end, like his eyebrows are like, that's right. That is actually true.
He runs in the same circles as Nancy Pelosi, who makes a fortune on Wall Street by buying things really just before an important congressional decision comes out and a law is passed benefiting, and Hillary Clinton, who selling uranium to Russia, selling American. These are the people. They all get together at someone's beach house in Martha's Vineyard and they share ideas. Hey, I got this guy in Ukraine.
That's known as cronyism, right? That's the cronyism you were talking about before. We don't live in a capitalist society. We live in a cronyist society where I'll scratch your back if you scratch mine, and we'll work together to achieve the said goals that the boss wants us to achieve, and we'll enrich ourselves in the process.
Yeah, our government is corrupt. Listen, I grew up kind of idealistic that way. I thought, the government was there to protect us and do everything the right way, and running for office was a noble thing, and they're all to take care of us. Boy, what a stupid kid I was. And too many people still think that their government is beneficent and they're there to look out for them.
So yesterday on Patrick Bet-David's podcast, he had the 2 FBI whistleblowers. There's 3 of them, but he only had 2 of them on there, and they're talking about whistleblowing just from a general perspective for about half an hour. And about half an hour in, he goes, all right, well, what are you blowing the whistle on? Like, what is it? We don't know. And he describes exactly how they break the law to enforce the law, how they do the wrong thing to be perceived to do the right thing. And the biggest revelation that you probably have never heard about in law enforcement goes to the heart of exactly what you were talking about, Ed. You think that the FBI is a noble organization, and I promise you that the people that work there are. And it's a few people, it's a few bad apples that are ruining it all, and the culture that enables that to happen. But you could fix these things because you can see these things in plain sight, particularly when these guys are talking about it. So one of the things that they have is the analogy that one of the guys gives is, he says, imagine if you were a traffic cop. You've got a quota that you have to meet to give out fines, yeah? But so, okay, no worries. What that's doing is it's making me go out there and do my job. So are quotas a good thing when it comes to that? Just put that aside for a second, and put the ethics of that aside for a second. The reason that they have quotas for those things is because the people in charge get paid a bonus when the quotas are met. So I never knew that law enforcement was subjected to cronyism like you've described. And when, you say, oh, I have these ideologies that, this is the best country in the world and it's not corrupt and it's really good and everyone cares for each other and all of those things. And that may be true in a lot of settings, maybe 90% of settings, that's true. But in these small percentage that it's not, it's really bad. And he was talking about one of the biggest things that they do is wiretaps. And he's talking about because that's like real. That's something that costs a lot of money, right, to do. And the more wiretaps these consultants can actually get, the bigger their bonuses are. So they're incentivized to break the law, to enforce the law, because they're going to get a financial gain. And the whistleblowers are showing why they're doing that. And one of them talks about how he won an award, like for, employee of the month or whatever the version of that is that they have. But he was doing really good investigative work, and he was working in, of all things, in child pornography. So he was a really good investigator looking after that and doing the right thing over there. And he was pulled out of that and put on these anti-terrorism task force. And one of the things that he was blowing the whistle on was saying that they were going to use a SWAT team and like 20 or 30 other officers to go and grab these people who said that they were going to help and comply with what their requests were. And he's like, well, why are we using this overwhelming force to go and get somebody who said to us that on the phone, yeah, I'll tell you what you want. I'll come down and I'll come to the station. Where do you want me to meet you? So this person was complying, and they're going to go and send all of these. And the reason they're sending all the assets there is because the person that's telling them to send all the assets there is getting paid. They're incentivized to actually use those assets to do that, to make a high value arrest when he's not a high value target. And it doesn't make any sense. So they're blowing the whistle on this corruption like that. That's the cronyism.
Yeah, IRS auditors, they're paid a bonus based on how much money they can get out of people.
How can you incentivize somebody to do that? That's like ridiculous.
Yeah, and that's what they do. They give them cash bonuses. It's like a commission, check for how much money. So they're incentivized to put people through the ringers, and they go after the poor people the most, because the poor people are the people with the least amount of resources, and
they can't fight back.
And they're the easiest to intimidate. They're the most likely to comply and work those extra shifts to come up with the money to comply. So they go after the poor people first. Civil forfeiture. Okay.
Is that what it's called?
Well, no, that's not. This is a different topic. So civil forfeiture. We're going to have to do a segment on this sometime. So, which is, it gives the police the ability to steal from you openly. What they do is they catch you out of state. So this is why I would never drive from here to Texas with my gold in my car,
because I could seize it.
Yeah, they could pull me over. Say, what are you doing with this amount of gold? That's not normal. And you can tell them it's my money. It's all legal, and they don't care if they suspect. Their go-to accusation is that you must be a drug mule.
Proceeds. That could be the proceeds of crime. Therefore, we're going to seize it until you can prove to us that it's not.
That's
and then they sandbag you with red tape forever.
Yep. So
you never get it back.
So if you have large amounts of cash, large amounts of gold, any kind of valuable asset that they deem does not seem normal for you to have, traveling through their state, they'll grab it and say, if you want to fight this, you have to go to court. Of course, you're never going to get those assets back. Civil forfeiture.
Be careful, huh?
It is one of the most evil parts of our government, so that's why I've got a son in New York, and sometimes I give him some gold and silver. Am I a fucking good dad or what? But if he were to come and visit me in Minnesota, I would never give him gold and silver to take on the plane.
Yeah, don't do that.
Because they're going to stop him. They're going to see the gold, go to the metal detector and they can see the gold and silver. There's no way of hiding gold and silver. They're going to see it, and 6 times out of 10, they're going to confiscate it.
Yeah, man, that's very, very interesting. That's part of the Western culture and the collapse of our society. All right, if you weren't riled up enough about Hunter Biden like that journalist, let me get you a little bit more riled up about the investigation that's currently ongoing. So this is the latest news from this morning, my time.
About who made the payment in the allegation?
It was a country that we haven't discussed yet.
So it's not Romania, it's not China, it's not Ukraine?
It's not.
So Joe Biden, the big guy, has been busted again. Not China, not Romania, not Ukraine. Who is it?
Can I guess?
It's not Romania.
It's
not.
Yeah, who do you think?
I'm going to say Poland.
Oh, Oh, actually, no, listen closely to what he says, because he doesn't quite disclose it yet.
Oh,
but
okay.
he says it's an actor that we wouldn't deal with.
Not China. It is another country that we'll be discussing further. We're trying to
North
track
Korea.
down some new bank
Yeah,
accounts. But look at what we have, Rob. We have a president of the United States whose family, while he was vice president, created these shell companies. And I don't think a lot of the liberal elitists that are in the media now even know what a shell company is. I learned that they didn't know what an LLC was.
Right.
But they've got these fake companies that were created when Joe Biden was vice president for the sole purpose of profiting off his position as vice president. And now he's president of the United States. Is he compromised? Is he making bad decisions that put America last because of his being in a compromised position? Or
Yes.
So do you think he's compromised? Do you think he was using the paid for what access are you getting? I pay money to Hunter Biden and his family and everything, right? So there's no disputing that. They've got the bank records and the documents. Okay, so I'm a Chinese businessman. I'm a Chinese company, whatever, right? Whatever, Romanian, Ukrainian, Chinese, North Korean, whatever it is, and I'm paying this money for access. But what am I actually getting? That's what I don't understand. Like
you get all sorts of favorable treatment, and
Like what?
if one of you, well, give me an example. This is an easy one. Let's say you have a high value citizen. Let's say you have a Huawei president who wants special access to some cell towers in Iowa. Yeah, I'll hook you up with the guy at the FTC. Boom.
Yeah, just little simple things like that.
And one small little thing that, like, how about getting access to our strategic petroleum reserve? Fuck.
That's just one of the little ones, you reckon?
That's one
So
of
you
the
reckon they
little
were
ones.
paying access? Well, when you say that, like, okay, it's in plain sight for me now. When you say that, like, why would any president in U.S. history sell the strategic petroleum reserve to an adversary? But now maybe that actually, you're joining all the dots there for me. I never saw that unspoken truth. There it was. I was blinded by the deep state media. See no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil.
Yeah. Well, how about this obvious, glaring scenario? So this guy has been a public servant his entire adult life.
Yeah,
And
for 50-something years.
This is a guy. The only way he could get through law school was by plagiarizing the guy sitting next to him. So this is not the smartest light bulb in the closet, okay? And he becomes president. He becomes a congressman and then senator. He's been in the Senate the entire life, and this guy is worth multi-millions of dollars.
Yeah, how is that possible, right? You're a public servant.
Right, making the vast majority of that over the past 10 years.
All right, let's keep going. Are you all right? You're not going to have an aneurysm on me or anything? All right, here we go.
his continual bribery, we don't know.
How, what,
That's why we're investigating.
the allegation, how much money are we talking?
$5 million on this one. But Rob, I think you're going to see that the Biden family took in somewhere, we've already proven $10 million. I think that this is going to end up being somewhere between 15 and $30 million. That will
adversarial country or just
adversarial country.
Really?
I tell people the most reputable country that I have found that the Biden family was taking money from was China. If that tells you anything. These are countries that Fortune 500 companies wouldn't even do business in. These are the few countries on the planet that that Coca-Cola and Procter & Gamble don't even.
Who would that be? I could only think of maybe North Korea, Syria, Iran.
North Korea, Iran. Yeah, I think it's got to be
Libya.
No, Coca-Cola is in Libya, I'm sure. And no,
yeah, for sure it would be, right? But Coke wouldn't be in Iran. Yeah, they would. Why wouldn't they be?
No, I don't know. Maybe they are, but I don't know. Coke is a big company in the Great Satan, so I don't know that they would want Coca-Cola there. Coca-Cola could give undue influence on their citizens, so I could see that.
He's certainly teasing us, right?
Yeah. I'm going to guess. I think it's North Korea or Iran. Yeah, I'm going to go with North Korea.
I'm going to go with Iran, ready? And that's why he got out of the Iranian JCPOA deal before all of that shit came undone. Remember, Trump got us out of it and he got us back into it.
Yeah, well, that was an Obama thing. That's an Obama pet project. But yeah, you're
Yeah,
right.
but then,
That could be,
Trump killed it, and then
yeah,
Biden got back
Biden
into
brought
it.
it back. That's true. That's true. I'm still going to go with North Korea because I could see I could I could see North Korea wanting to find any avenue because they don't. North Korea doesn't have a whole lot of diplomatic access to America, right? I mean, that country at night they have no electricity. I don't know how they do any. I don't know how they talk to anybody. But I could see they probably have just enough electricity to send a money wire if they had to. So yeah, I'm gonna guess North Korea.
All right, let's keep going. Mr. Comer's nearly finished.
Even want a deal.
Does he
Go ahead,
reveal?
Ed.
Does he reveal it?
No, he doesn't because he's still gathering the evidence. He'll say that.
So this goes to show that this president has a lot of explaining to do because no private sector businesses, or let me rephrase that, few private sector businesses or industries even fool with a lot of these countries. So why is Joe Biden's family receiving money? Here we have a credible witness, a credible informant that made this accusation years before anyone knew about the shell companies or the family receiving wires. And I think what we've done is what the FBI should have done a long time ago. We've been digging, and we've actually got credible evidence in the form of bank record, in the form of people who we've been interviewing. Obviously, we knew where to look for these bank accounts. We got into the Treasury cabinet. We saw these bank violations. I mean, this is unbelievable. This is corruption on a scale we've never seen in the history of our country, and yet very few media outlets are even covering it. Thank you for what you're doing. We're going to continue to dig. We're going to continue to follow the money, and we're going to present the truth to the American people once and for all.
It is it's an upside down world we live in, eh?
I hope this guy doesn't end up in a cell in the federal penitentiary in New York anytime soon. Because
like you know who, right? So, look, I think it's important that you keep one eye on these stories. First of all, they're pretty entertaining. Second of all, it just kind of highlights that whatever these people say, they have zero credibility, none. No. You can't. If that's actually true, and it sounds like it's true, I don't know. True. What do I know? But that when they come out and they tell you to do something, and they tell you that we want you to do this, or we want you to do that, or this is how we want you to behave, it's like you have no credibility. You can't come from a place of weakness and then pretend to be the leader. You can't come from a place of being completely compromised and corrupted and then pretend like you're the high and mighty emperor, but we all know the emperor has no clothes. It's like unbelievable, man.
He has no clothes and no sense of balance.
He keeps tripping over.
This also demonstrates that the media is part of the deep state. The media is part of the disinformation campaign. So that's why you have to pay more attention to outlets like ours.
All right, let's shift gears. I want to show you something that's happening at the border that the deep state won't show you. So this comes from a fellow named Oscar L. Blue. So at Oscar ELBLUE, like the color, on Twitter. So make sure you look him up. I'll put the link to his stream in the description. But he's about to show us exactly what's going on at the border.
Javelin missiles?
Alejandro Mayorkas. We are in the...
No one's holding a javelin or an AT.
migrant camp at San Vicente. The majority right here on the back, all of them are from China, as they are migrating into the northern borders of the United States. Venezuela, China, 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 Venezuela, Venezuela, China. Where are you going? United States? United States, USA? Where are you going?
USA.
USA. This was China.
Yes, from China.
China. Where you going to the United States? USA.
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 American law, New York.
America, New York.
Yes.
Yes. Xi Jinping. No. No. Okay.
Folks, don't be fooled by these Chinese people looking baffled. They simply don't speak English. If someone was standing there speaking Mandarin to you, saying, Australia, and then talking Mandarin in between that one word that you understand, you'd look confused and baffled as well. Don't make no mistake. These people are really, really hyper smart people. They're hyper educated. They're really intelligent people. And them standing at the border, waiting to go across, shows me and demonstrates to me how smart they actually are. Because there's contacts in the United States going, "Oi, just come fly into Tijuana, come up there, pay that guy, and he'll get you across. Don't worry about that." And the CCP are taking advantage of it. You know, there's one of my favorite movies of all time with Angelina Jolie. It's called Salt. Yeah, and Salt is where she's an American CIA agent, and she plays this, the CIA agent, the tough girl sort of thing. And you find out through the movie, spoiler alert, that she's actually a Russian plant from the K program from the Cold War. So there's no reason why the Chinese Communist Party wouldn't be using a K-style program that the Soviets used. It's a leaf out of the Soviet playbook, taking these people and inserting them into American society for the day, yeah? And when you look at the next guy, the guy here in the white T-shirt, he knows exactly what's going on. He knows. These people are not stupid, folks. Just because they don't understand English and they don't know doesn't mean that they don't understand. This guy in the white shirt knows. Watch his body language and his face.
USA, China.
See that? He's like, yeah, whatever. He understands perfect English, yeah, because he didn't go, "What are you trying to say to me?" So he's probably the guy in front of him that couldn't understand English. That's his interpreter. These other fellas, they're all happy and...
Nepal. China.
See that guy? No, I'm not having a part of that. Yeah, I'm not being part of that. Their body language is so telling, man. It doesn't matter what culture you're from or what country you're from. Their behavior, the way they look and their demeanor, it's very, very telling.
China.
You can't tell me that half of these guys don't look like Chinese soldiers. Yeah. Like if I just back up the video along the line there, look at the four men here in this frame. They've all got crew cuts. Yeah. Their bodies are all the same. Yeah. So when you get a bunch of Aussie infantry soldiers together, they don't look like athletes. Yeah. Because some of us are a bit overweight and we carry like a lot of weight because you're carrying around a 50 or 60 kilo pack. Then you're running around with a machine gun that weighs 20 kilos. Australian soldiers are big, burly Aussie guys, right? American Marines. So think of an American Marine, big, burly Aussie dude with a big square jaw and a short haircut, the quintessential jarhead type, G.I. Joe thing. When you see Chinese soldiers, they all look like these fellas. And I'm not saying they're Chinese soldiers. They could just be people wanting a better life. But as soon as I say that, don't they look like Chinese soldiers? You can't unsee it. What are you thinking, Ed, when you see this, man?
Yeah, no, I'm thinking, okay, so every person out there trying to get into our country legally, waiting for a visa, in many cases waiting for years to get a visa to come into America legally. Remember, I did a video a couple weeks ago with you talking about the topic. I said, you're all chumps.
Yeah, just go down to Tijuana and walk across.
Yeah, do what these guys did. You're not going to be arrested. You're not going to be sent home. Eventually, they're going to do an amnesty, and then you're home free. So every person who's trying to get into, and of course, I'm saying that half sarcastically, right? But I'm proving a point that our borders are not closed; they're open. Our government is facilitating this.
They're opening the borders to the Chinese infantry soldiers here.
I mean, we saw, Morocco or whatever the guy's name. He was sending buses down to Panama during the past year to bring, disease-infested people, tuberculosis-infected people on air-conditioned buses. They're going down to bring them in. So if you're too weak to come in on your own, we'll go down. We'll pick you up in an air-conditioned bus.
I was watching a video yesterday. It's a bit too long to play here, and it was too hard to cut as well because it kind of killed the story if I cut it. But essentially what they were doing was they were at the end point of the Darien Gap where everybody was coming in. And so there's a series of these boats coming in. Everyone's wearing like a life jacket. It's nice and safe, right? There's little kids. It's safe. and they're coming through, and the first people to get off the boat are a bunch of special forces soldiers. You can tell they're SF guys. The guy's got a pistol in his webbing here like that. He's got a proper M4. He's tooled up properly, and he looks like a soldier, right? I think he might be a Colombian soldier. He might even be a Panamanian soldier. I'm not sure. I think I have to go back and check. Either way, he's an SF. He's an operator, and the reporter's like, "Who are you, bro? Like, why is the army here? What's going on?" And he goes, "Oh, I just help these people through the gap. And I've been with him for the last 4 days." And so they're getting military escorts to go through the Darien Gap. And at some point, the government must have recognized that all these people are dying, and therefore we need to do something to stop these people dying. Send the infantry guys in there. Yep. They know what they're doing, and they can escort these people through. Yep. We'll get them to this end. Whatever happens from there happens, like not our problem. And then he kind of was shouting at a guy in a boat across the way, and he's like, "Where you from?" And he goes, "Afghanistan." And he goes, "Oh, you're with your family?" And he goes, "Yes, my wife and my children are here." And another dude gets off the boat, and he said, "Oh, how was it?" And he goes, "Man, it was like the most dangerous thing ever. Just the mudslides, the jungle." He said, one wrong step, you're off the end of the cliff, and that's the end of you." And he goes, He looks around, and he goes, "I don't know how any of these kids made it." He just said it's a miracle that any of these people made it. It's very, very scary stuff. So again, folks, head over to Oscar L. Blue on Twitter, and you can see some more of this video. I'll just play it to the end now.
China.
Chinese soldiers,
All of you, China.
infantry,
China.
infantry, machine gunner,
China.
scout,
China.
medic,
China. And China. Wow.
They're all cut from the same
All
mold, man.
Chinese.
They come from that same infantry family.
You're from China? Okay. China. USA. Going to the USA. Estados Unidos.
That's what's really going on at the border, folks. That's
another thing I want to point
happening.
out, notice that these people, I mean, compared to the South American counterparts there.
They're well dressed, aren't they?
They're well dressed, they're well groomed, they're well mannered, they're well behaved.
Yeah, the men are all shaved.
The men are all shaved, and they all have one backpack.
You know what's in the backpack, right?
Dollar bills.
Bullion.
Probably Chinese bullion. So because they know, they're told, "Man, just bring a change of clothes and some toothpaste because we have everything you need here. You'll get everything you need here."
By the way, here's a card with $1,000 on it to get whatever you need to get yourself started.
Yeah, courtesy of the United Nations. There you go.
Oh man, unbelievable, right?
Yeah, this is. There are forces at work in the world that want to take America down a peg, and this is one of the ways they're doing it. Our country is being invaded. It is being invaded. And
there's no doubt about it. Hey, when you watch those videos, there's no doubt about it.
We don't know. I mean, there might be an army of computer programmers, computer hackers.
What if they were all hackers? They're not infantry guys. They're actually some of the smartest, most intelligent Chinese military hackers that we have. They're going to infiltrate everything, and they're actually the white supremacists in disguise. Just saying.
They could rent a house in Ohio, and they're all sitting in the basement. They build a super. They go to Radio Shack and get all the components to build a supercomputer in the basement of the suburban house to hack our grid.
Yeah. I think I saw a movie like that once. I think you and I like the idea of a Chinese boogeyman because the deep state and the mainstream media will tell you that the CCP are the boogeyman, and to a point they're right. But those people could just be normal, regular people wanting a better life as well, and they're seizing the opportunity. They've got the means and the ability to do that, so they're doing it as well. So I'm not judging anyone for doing that. If they're looking for a better life, then all power to them.
Okay, well, you know what?
You should be doing it the right way, not that way.
There you go. I am going to judge it a little bit. Okay.
Yeah.
No, I understand. Listen, if I were in South America and I was in a situation and I had a family to support, I'd probably be trying to do the same thing. However, we do have laws that we are allowed to enforce.
I empathize with it, but I don't condone it.
Yeah, perfect. Well said. I mean, those people. You have some sweet little nurse in the Philippines who worked hard to study to become a nurse, and she studied really hard, and she's working on her work visa. She's got an employer all lined up. It might take her 4 or 5 years to get the green card to come over here legally, but she'll do it. She'll do it legally. Whereas you get these people in other countries. Listen, if you're in South America and you don't like how your country is operating, why don't you stop stop electing a socialist?
You can sum it up like this. I can sum up your feelings like this, Ed. Nobody likes a queue jumper, man. Doesn't matter who you are. All right, I want to go to the next video and get a little bit more pace here as we close out the show. I was trying to think about how to follow that and what would I do, because there's a couple of videos there, as you can see. What would I do to follow that? And one thing that I could do was to highlight and remind everybody about the unspoken truth. And the whole reason we exist is to peel back the curtain and show you actually what's going on behind the mainstream narrative. The Democrat Party will tell you that the border is a success, but it didn't look like that those people were very successful. And the stuff that I'm seeing on Twitter every other day is not a success. The stuff I see on Telegram every other day is not a success either. So I want to highlight to you the arrogance of deep state. I want to highlight to you the hypocrisy of deep state and why they think they're better than us. And I want to show you a video that puts these fuckers right in their place. And who better to do it than our good buddy, freshly out of jail, Andrew Tate.
Watch my content at length and understand what I'm saying. You have small pieces of paper, small clips on a piece of paper, and you're trying to pretend I've said evil things. And then you're going to say I'm the most dangerous man in the world, which is truly laughable. Do you believe I'm the most dangerous man in the world, Lucy?
I'm not answering your question.
Well, then we need to change the dynamic of this interview because, and I'll make this clear, I allowed you into my home. I'm doing you a favor, giving you the first interview I'm giving to the public. You don't come here with a position of authority. You're not the police. I don't respect the BBC. I don't know you. We are equals. We are people, and I see you as my equal. And if you ask me questions, I can ask you questions back. For you to come here and sit down and pretend you're the Gestapo and that you don't have to answer my questions is disingenuous because this is a conversation. I don't owe you any degree of authority over me.
I think we're done.
So he talks really quickly there, right? But that's how Andrew Tate talks. Essentially, she's having a crack at him, and without having done any research on him other than just a cursory glance at Twitter and what people say about him, or a Google search about what the deep state wants you to know about the guy. And he says that that's disingenuous. You can't do that. And then she has a tantrum and says, "We're done."
I was wondering whether you saw that. I forgot to ask you whether you saw. I saw that and I watched the whole interview. What Andrew did is he invited them in, and then he had his own cameras running. So as far as I'm concerned, I think he thought it through. He set them up. I'm not sure if he set him up, but I think Elon Musk did that recently as well. Remember when he schooled that BBC reporter as well, and he said, "I'll do the interview with you, but we're going to do it on Twitter Spaces, and we're going to do it live, so it can't be clipped." Well, and that's what Andrew has done, right? Yeah, so the BBC would clip it all and get you to see what it is that you want to see, and Andrew's like, "Fuck that! I'm not letting you do that to me." My guess is this is going to start becoming standard operating procedure by anytime a famous person wants to do a major interview, he's going to have his own cameras, and God bless him. He can keep him honest that way. All he has to do is put up his own unedited video and just let people watch. For me, it's fascinating. I watched the whole thing at regular speed, he ate her up and spit her out. And she kept tenacious. She kept throwing these lies at him, and like he just answered it, but she'll ask it again, like he didn't, and she'll ask it again. She's trying, she's trying to get that soundbite, that aha moment, that gotcha soundbite, right?
What it shows to me when somebody is doing that. Ed, tell me what you think here, man. It shows to me that the journalism degree that these people have is useless. Because I'm not a journalist, but I'm able to tell you a story in a way that's relatable to you because I can build intrigue and anticipation and understand all of those things. But more than being able to be a good writer, because journalists, as a rule of thumb, are really good writers, I can solve that problem with ChatGPT now, so that skill is completely irrelevant. Sorry, but that's the fact. I don't want to be blunt, but that's the fact. ChatGPT can write an article better than you to probably not better than 95% of the population. There's only probably 4 or 5% of the population, and journalists and writers would be in that 4 or 5% that could write an article better than ChatGPT. But more than the writing skill, is the on-camera persona and on-camera presence and the ability to think on your feet. And just because you've got a journalism degree, it doesn't mean you're able to do those things. I would suggest to you that any formal qualification that you have would be an impediment to you to be able to do that. My theory is not a theory, it's actually a fact, because all of the health bureaucrats around the world got into this groupthink idea about COVID and all the bullshit that went on, and they were all a bunch of morons. They're the world's stupidest people, but they have these degrees and these PhDs, and they're really book smart and everything like that. But the minute you put a camera in front of them, they pretend like they're the gods and the arbiters of health and truth. And if you don't do what they say, you'll die. But they're responsible for the death of literally millions of people around the world for injecting people. Those doctors are responsible, but not a single doctor has been held accountable. None of them are in jail, but they all injected people. Why? They injected people with something that they never actually could check and trust. So that says to me that all the education in the world doesn't mean you're smart. It means you're a fucking social moron. And these journalists that keep getting caught out by celebrities like Andrew Tate and Elon Musk, and there's others out there as well, will show you just how unbelievably stupid the mainstream media is.
Well, CNN won a Pulitzer Prize for for a report.
Russia.
Yeah, Russia, right?
All these dickheads giving themselves awards.
That's right.
It's like that thing we watched yesterday. The minute the Australian government said, well, we published the publication in Lancet. Well, why would you put it in Lancet? Lancet's owned by pharmaceutical companies promoting drugs. Why would you ever do that? Oh, you're a conspiracy theorist, Rob. No, I'm not. I'm just telling you the facts. They're the facts. You don't like the facts, so you call me a racist.
Yeah. Yeah. What does that have to do with anything?
Nothing. All right.
No, journalism is dead, and it's been dead for generations. And people now, you're right. It's if you want to be a journalist, it's actually disadvantageous to have a degree from a journalism school.
All you have to do is tell the truth.
People assume that you've been, indoctrinated. They assume it.
So let's not bash journalists too hard, because there was some good journalism that happened here in Australia in the last couple of days.
That phrase is really used very loosely, right? Journalism.
So do you know about the Ben Roberts-Smith case here in Australia? Are you familiar with that? You see that in your news? So Ben Roberts-Smith, he won a Victoria Cross. Yeah, so that's equivalent to your Medal of Honor. Same, but different, right? So he won that in Afghanistan. I actually served with RS. He was in Bravo Company when I was in Alpha Company. So I actually know the dude. So he won the Victoria Cross in Afghanistan. And then there was a bunch of journalists that came out and said, actually, no, well, he won the cross. Yeah, there's no doubt about that. That's legit. But did you know that he was also implicated in war crimes there? Everyone's like, what? So the journalist went out and did this big investigation. And he came out and went, no, what are you talking about? No. So he filed a defamation case against the journalist, against Channel 9 and the particular journalist. And the owner of Channel 7 here in Australia, Kerry Stokes, backed it. And it's been the most expensive and long defamation case in Australian history. It's cost $25 million, and he lost. He lost the case. And the burden of proof that they have in a defamation case is quite different to the burden of proof if he gets put up for war crimes. And that's actually what they're doing now, is they're taking the evidence that's been collected, handing it to the military, saying, this is what we found. He was found, the defamation case was thrown out by the judge, and he was ordered to pay all the costs and everything that had happened there. So now you probably should investigate if what we're saying is true to get to that level, that burden of proof. So the journalists had done the way I describe it is, man, oh man, did you hear what this journalist is going to do? Well, bro, if you're gonna have a swing at this guy, make sure you knock him out, yeah? And I think the journalist did the right thing in that perspective, because he went to Afghanistan, he did the investigation, he spoke to the witnesses, he spoke to the families, and then he brought the fellow SAS members in, yeah, under oath, all redacted, all of those things. And then the whole story came together that it was actually true what he was accusing them of. Although the burden of proof in a defamation case is considerably less than what it is in the war crimes case, but it has further implications for RS as a result of that. And it's a pretty serious thing. So I sort of felt a little bit kind of angry about RS actually now, so you lost your case. And I'm like, that must be a fucking deep state scam, blah, blah. He didn't go out and do all those things. But then if you listen closely to what the mainstream media will say, they won. And the reason they won is because they proved it to a point that was in accordance with the courts. And then I thought to myself, well, I shouldn't be angry that somebody's been out there committing war crimes and murdering people and killing people, and they shouldn't have been doing that. I don't know what he's doing. I don't know. All I'm getting is the mainstream story here. But if the court system says that that's the case, then, well, that they know better than me. And I thought, that's actually a good win for the journalists.
Well, yeah, okay, there you go. Win. Okay, so there's one.
One good one.
Yeah, there's one.
They've done plenty of good stories. They've done plenty of good stories.
Yeah, no.
But as I know, as a whole, they're a bunch of fucking morons. Sorry, I'm going to tar them with all the same brush. They're a bunch of fucking morons.
That is a very rare case of proper investigative journalism.
It is,
That's what it should be.
And the burden of proof was so high that it was agreed to by a court of law. Yeah. So that's actually a really good thing. All right, let's shift gears. I want to give you one more video that might get you riled up. And I kind of, as I mentioned, what am I going to call this segment? This is what I called it, right? Western culture collapsing. What can we do? This quick little clip here kind of highlights just how Western culture is collapsing, and it is upside down. Let's take a look.
My name is Nicole Solis, and I am a mother from Rhode Island who was sued by the teachers union simply because I wanted to know what my kindergartner would be learning in school. And here's how this happened. I asked to see the curriculum, and my school told me I had to submit a public records request. The curriculum wasn't posted online, and it wasn't available in a school district. Then I asked them if they were teaching gender theory, and they told me that they don't call children boys and girls, and they embed the values of gender identity into every classroom, including kindergarten, and they didn't want to answer any of my questions further. They told me that they would communicate with me only through public records requests, and that is the only way I could get my questions answered. And when I did submit the public records request that they told me to submit, and I submitted hundreds because I had hundreds of questions, my school board then put my name on the agenda of a public school board meeting and held a public school board meeting to discuss suing me for submitting the request that they told me to submit. In a 5-hour-long school board...
Dude, the world's upside down. She wants to know what's in the school curriculum, what is her kid learning about in school, and she asked and follows their system, and now they're going to sue her. Listen.
Meeting, they openly debated my moral character, my political motivations. They said that I was causing chaos, wreaking havoc, harming the district, harming children. One school board member even said she felt unsafe and started to cry because, as you see, I'm really scary standing here right now. And they really just tarred and feathered me for asking questions. And they had never met me before, and this was the first school board meeting that I had ever been to in my life. They wanted to send a message to other parents that if you ask questions, they will come after you. Well, at the end of this meeting, they decided that they wouldn't sue me for asking questions because they never intended on actually suing me. They just wanted to publicly humiliate me in a school board meeting that was a show trial. And when that happened, then the teachers union, the largest teachers union in the country, the NEA, did file a lawsuit against me to bully me and harass me with frivolous litigation and to send a message to other parents that if you ask questions about public education, they will come after you.
So if you didn't pick it up at the start there, who she's talking to Kevin McCarthy, of all people. So he's sitting in the room and she's saying that to him. So the number 3 in charge in the United States is listening to that story. Man, the world is upside down. Why on earth would a teachers association or union sue a parent for asking what's in a curriculum? Shouldn't that be public information and be publicly available? There must be some rules around that. And all these organizations do when they've got money is they try and bury you in legal costs, because their lawyer will send you a message, you get it in the mail, you open it up, and then you go to your lawyer, and he goes, yeah, I'll respond for you, $800. And then off you go there, and then they send you another one. Oh, you want me to respond to that? Sure, $1,200, off you go. And then they just bury you, that's what she's saying. They're burying you in frivolous legal things that if you don't reply to them, the ruling will go in their favor. And when the ruling goes in their favor, you're going to be fined or have to pay costs as a result of that. So these people are just horrible, man. And you're doing that to a regular, normal suburban mum who's just asking regular, normal questions, man. The world's upside down. Crazy.
If stories like this don't make everybody in our audience want to be a libertarian, I don't know what else we can possibly do to convince you. These stories are way too common. They always eventually come out because these days people are recording them and they are making their way on the internet. People are starting to hear these stories, but these stories they're out there. If you look for them, there are lots of these stories. And the NEA, the National Education Association, these guys, this is a government entity. Okay, this is the NEA, the educational department in our country. They're not there for the kids. Okay, this is a teachers union. They're there for the teachers. It's not about the kids. And the government does not consider. Boy, talking about scary, a scary thought. The government doesn't consider your children your children. That's why they have all these programs right out there that promote the gender transitioning privately. Your parents do not have the right to know that you are privately changing your gender while you're at school. The parents have no rights. This is so. What is it going to take?
What's wrong with the world, man?
This is the end result of indoctrination. This is communism and socialism seeping into our educational system. And now, the parents that are out there right now, they are largely products themselves of this indoctrination. That's why they're able to get more and more of these programs through. Because parents are not pushing back because they're cheering. They agree with these programs. They agree.
Yeah, it's like we started off the program by talking about the debt jubilee and the forgiveness of debt now, and that's going to be the end of the financial system and the end of how everything works. And it seems to me like what we're going through now is the end of the cultural system as well. I want to end the show here, Ed, with you with a couple of quotes, and I'm going to read them. What inspired you to change your corporation's logo to a rainbow flag? Satan. I think the SpongeBob cartoon does a really good job there. All right, a couple of other quotes. When you're told that mining coal is bad, but mining copper, lithium, cobalt, and nickel is good, you know that you're being conned. This is the upside down world that we live in, and I want to just highlight a couple of these things towards the end. Here's a nice quote from George Carlin, who's pretty funny sometimes. I have certain rules I live by. My first rule is I don't believe anything the government tells me. And I like that, George. That's a good quote. And here's a last religious one for you, Ed, particularly. What would Jesus do? Jesus would end the Fed. That's what Jesus would do. And Jesus is holding his slipper about to belt the banker there. It's kind of funny, isn't it?
Yeah, turning over the money changers table. Yep.
There it is. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that brings it to a close for another week. We're here at an hour 42. My ass is like molded into this chair. Thank you, Ed, for spending some time with me. It's been a hell of a week, man. It's been a lot of fun. Have you got any closing remarks for us?
Yeah, so we didn't crack an hour? We didn't come in under an hour?
Oh, we're nudging 2 hours.
No, thank you everyone for watching. And if you couldn't watch the whole show because you got things to do, please, this is going to be recorded. Please come back and watch the recording. And I'm sure everyone has subscribed. But if you haven't, if you're new to the channel, please subscribe. Hit the like button because it helps keep us on the air. And I guess that's it. So everyone have a great weekend.
That's it. Let's get out of here. Bye everyone. See ya.